Welcome to the Skip and Shannon Undisputed podcast. I'm Joy Taylor. You can catch us Monday through Friday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, 6:30 Pacific on FS1. Here's what this podcast is all about. It's an unscripted, unfiltered, undisputed version of the day's show, and there is a lot to get into in today's podcast. The Browns are on the clock, and Skip warns that Myles Garrett and Mitch Trubisky would be a regret for Cleveland. Our college football expert Joel Klatt checks in live from Philadelphia to give us the latest on what he's hearing about tonight's draft. Shannon gives us a unique lesson in home building to explain why Russell Westbrook can't play the minutes that LeBron can. Plus, Hall of Famer Chris Carter questions what position Jabrill Peppers will play in the NFL and also talks about his Buckeye defensive backs, Marshawn Lattimore and Malik Hooker. Finally, Rob Parker joins us to tell us why the NFL should just say no to Joe Mixon. NFL draft and Spurs tonight. What are you going to watch, Skip?
I have a huge dilemma tonight.
Two equally perplexing situations.
Yes, I have my Spurs in a huge Game 6 at Memphis up against the NFL draft in which my Cowboys picked 28th, and so they're going to, hit head-to-head. And guess who's going to win out? The NFL draft will prevail tonight. I will barely be watching my Spurs. I can't watch two things at once carefully like you have to watch.
Do you want to give me any credit for the Les Alexander fine, which I told you, the Houston's owner?
Oh, so you just ignore what I said. What did you say? You said it was going to be like 500,000.
I said at bare minimum it would be what, Joy Taylor?
Said 100,000.
How much?
100K.
100? Well, it's because they were
10 racks.
Okay,
There was no precedent for it, though.
Yeah.
Yes, it
It's a
was.
good guess.
Yeah. Okay.
Guess.
I couldn't even hear what you're saying because the show is being counted down in our ears.
First of all, Skip,
Let's start the show. Let's
Your
get it
Spurs
started
are
with
boring,
the
the
NFL
draft.
draft. The Browns VP of Football Operations, Sashi Brown, told NFL Network that they've known for 2 weeks who they'll take with the number 1 overall pick. In Peter Schrager's mock draft on FoxSports.com, he has Myles Garrett going first to Cleveland, but there have been rumors that the Browns also could take Mitchell Trubisky. The Browns also have the 12th overall pick. So, Shannon, what should the Browns do with their first picks?
Adam Schefter is reporting that Hugh Jackson has been taken out of the decision-making process for the number 1 overall pick, which should surprise no one, Skip.
Because?
Because if you look at this since Jimmy Haslam has been there, he fired Rob Chudzinski after 1 year. He fired Michael Lombardi after 1 year, after Michael Lombardi traded Trent Richardson in that terrible contract and that terrible player when they should have given Lombardi a 3-year extension. He fired Mike Pettin after 2 years when he forced Mike Pettin to take who, Skip? One Johnny Manziel. So if Hugh Jackson is as smart as I think he is, he should see the writing on the wall. This is probably Hugh Jackson's last year with the Browns. Now, after saying all of that, it appears to me Cleveland wants to take Myles Garrett and they want Trubisky. The only way they can make this happen, Skip, is they need to take Garrett first. They have the 12th pick in the first round. Now, because they have 2 first-round picks. They also have 2 second-round picks, 1 third. So they have the ammunition to move back up, say, into the top 5. I believe they can go to 5 with Tennessee. Trade with Tennessee, give them, switch places. They go to 5, Tennessee goes to 12.
Because they're afraid the Jets will take Mitchell Trubisky.
Right. Skip, they want Garrett and they want Trubisky.
Yeah.
The only way they can guarantee themselves that they're going to get both of these players, they must take Myles Garrett 1. If you do not take Myles Garrett 1, you're not getting him. That's done deal. Take Garrett 1. Give that 12th pick. You have 2 second-rounders. Give the 12th pick in the draft. Give the second-round pick in the draft because you have 2 twos, Skip, because it's not like you only have 1. You have 2 twos. Give them one of those and maybe the fourth round pick.
Yep.
And move up to 5 with Tennessee and take Mitchell Trubisky if you believe he's the guy of the future because he is an Ohio kid. So, and you know how Ohio fans feel about their Ohio player, local kid playing for the local team. So that would be a win-win. Now, I'm more convinced than ever that they're probably going to take a punter with the first overall pick because I'm quite sure now. I'm beginning to wonder, you have all the confidence in the world in Sashi Brown. I'm not so sure. Because
I never said that. I just like him. I like Paul DePodesta. I just like them personally. I think they're good guys, and I root for them. But if they do this, I'm not going to root for them.
So that's what I'm thinking, Skip. If you want Myles Garrett and you want Trubisky, the only way you can guarantee yourself that you're going to get both, you better take Myles Garrett number 1, package the 12th pick in the draft, a second-round pick, maybe a 4th, move up to 5 with Tennessee, and take Trubisky. That's the only way you're going to get both of the guys that you want. Because if you take Trubisky first, you're not getting Myles Garrett.
So here's my issue with both of these picks. If the Cleveland Browns walk away late tonight with these two guys, Myles Garrett and Mitchell Trubisky, they will forever regret the 2017 draft, because I don't get or see either one of these picks as high picks in this draft. And again, you and I have gone back and forth about Myles Garrett, and I think you're mostly on my page about this. But again, I just watch television. I don't break down coaches' tapes. But my screen test, as I call it, has been pretty accurate over the years. And if you don't see a college football player flash on your screen occasionally, if you don't see him dominate college football to the point that he starts to leap off your screen when you watch him in big games, he will not translate to the next level. And my screen test has been pretty valuable to me over the years. And again, when I watched Myles Garrett, he never leaped off my screen. And I watched a good bit of A&M last year. I didn't watch quite as much of North Carolina, but I promise you, not once did I ever sit back while I was watching North Carolina and think, that Mitchell Trubisky is going to make some NFL team really happy.
Right.
In fact, if you'd said he's going to go in the 5th round, I'd say, I could see that. Maybe it's a project for somebody to take a shot at, because I would watch a guy who looked a little robotic, who didn't have a great feel or touch for running a college offense. I saw a guy who didn't have any real feel for throwing the deep ball. And this is the guy that I'm now reading reports that they've had discussions about taking Mitchell Trubisky #1 overall.
Well, Skip, if you look at the Florida State tape, you're going to take him #1 overall, because I think that was the best game he had. You remember the game went back and forth, and then he led him down the field and got him in field goal range. So if you look at that tape, maybe, Skip, but I agree with you, Skip. I don't see it.
They went 8-5, did North Carolina. They lost their bowl game to a Stanford team without Christian McCaffrey, a game that I watched a lot of, and he threw 2 touchdowns and looked okay doing that. And he also threw 2 picks and didn't look very good doing that against Stanford. And I hark back to my days of watching Jay Cutler play at my school, Vanderbilt. And again, they're the doormat of the SEC, but trust me on this, and Mike Shanahan would applaud that I'd be saying this. You just had to watch a couple of games when Jay was a junior, and he would leap off your screen. You'd say, that guy's got big-time talent.
Right.
Where he would take over an SEC game, and you'd say, wait, are my eyes deceiving me? That guy, he's got athletic ability, he's got a huge arm, and he actually has a pretty good feel for throwing the football and making it all work against a far superior defense to his offense, right?
Right.
So, again, Jay Cutler, a lot of people think he's been a quote-unquote bust in the NFL. I don't think you can go that far, but he's had his struggle.
I mean, he's had a good to sometimes very good NFL career, but I don't think he ever maximized his total ability of what he could be. Now, whatever reasons that were, reasons for that, I'm unsure. But you don't think he maximized his ability?
No, I don't. But my point is, if you saw him in college, trust me, if you just watched one game on TV, you'd sit back and say, that guy might just be able to play in the National Football League, because he looks like a starting quarterback. And Mike Shanahan, who knows a whole lot about quarterbacks, traded up to, if memory serves, 11 overall.
11. He was 11.
11 overall to snatch Jay Cutler. No, I wasn't surprised at all. The most shocking rise up the draft board in all my years of doing the draft, all of them, is Mitch Trubisky. I don't get it, because I never saw any hint of this.
I didn't either.
And all of a sudden, people are vying for him at the top of the draft. The Jets are hot. For what? He couldn't start for 2 years. He was Mr. Ohio football, as you point out.
Yes.
But then he goes to North Carolina, and Marquise Williams is more of an option quarterback. But they run a lot of option, and Trubisky came out as a dual threat guy.
Right.
So he's got athletic ability that I didn't see a lot of last year, because they didn't really do that much of it. But they had a lot of triple, option, what do you call it?
Zone read.
They had all that built into their offense. But the point is that what are we seeing here? This is runaway mock draft kind of stuff, to the point that I am mocking the mock drafts today, because I don't get it. And I'm going to caution you that I'll hark back to that 2011 draft. And this is one where I stood my ground. You can go check the tapes. 2011, lots of quarterbacks were going to go high. It was Jake Locker, and it was Blaine Gabbert, and it was Christian Ponder. And they're going to go in some order, and everybody's vying for who's going to take them how high. It's just like with Deshaun Watson and Trubisky. And all of a sudden, I'm looking at them, and I watched a lot of those three guys in college, and I said, I don't see any of them. I don't see them as first-round picks. They're all nice guys, and if you go interview them, we had them all on the show. They're all great guys. You know, you'd say, oh, I'd like to have him in my quarterback room. Can they play? Were they transcendent college quarterbacks? No. I didn't like Ryan Tannehill when he was at A&M, and maybe he's been better than I thought. And they did make the playoffs last year, so I give you that. But he's constantly frustrating you because he can do this, but he doesn't do that, and he can be a little thick-headed. And I just never loved him as a guy that you take to say he can take us to the promised land. That's the kind of guy Mitch Trubisky is.
I mean, if you think about it, Skip, you mentioned those guys in 2011. You mentioned Blaine Gabbert, Christian Ponder, and Jake Locker. 2 of the 3 are out of the league.
They are.
Here to 7 years later.
Okay.
They're out of the league.
Yeah.
Like, Locker left last year. Ponder was back, he's been all over the place, but he's out of the league now. And that's what happens. It's because that position is so valuable. And you realize the likelihood, unless you have an all-time great defense, if you don't have one of these guys calling the plays for you, you're going to be in trouble. So you overvalue them. And you quick to hear, oh, he's a project. Why am I going to pay $10, $15, $20 million for a project?
You're going to trade up and waste your draft picks, your stockpile of draft picks to go up and get Mitchell. Really?
A teardown.
Really?
Let me ask you this, Skip. If you look at all of Myles Garrett's tape, you take his best year, maybe it was his freshman year, maybe it was his sophomore year. Did he jump off your screen?
Never.
Like Jadeveon Clowney his sophomore year jumped off your screen?
Nope, he did not.
What about Ndamukong Suh?
Hugely. Just dominated Big 12 games. Just where they tried 3 people blocking him and nobody could block him.
I remember watching him skip his the year before he came out. I think it was his junior year. And the funny name, that's what got me Ndamukong Suh. I'm like, Ndamukong Suh. Let me just sit down and watch it. This dude Hellraiser. I said, this dude Warren Sapp.
Yep.
That's what
and he was bigger and stronger than Warren Sapp.
And then his senior year, his Big 12 game, Skip, might have been the most dominant college football. Yes, the conference, the Big 12 championship against Texas.
I know.
Might be the most dominant defensive performance that I've ever seen.
I would agree.
And when you look at Myles Garrett, Skip, I don't see it. I don't see a guy that plays to his measurable. Warren Sapp called him lazy. I think he plays lazy at times.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a lazy person, Skip. You can't be built like that and be lazy. Because you have to get into the gym. You have to lift those weights. So he's not a lazy person. He plays lazy. He doesn't play to the measurables. At his size, at his speed, Skip, that's a 20 sack. He should have 20 sacks. And he should dominate every competition. It shouldn't be UT San Antonio. Really what you want to see is him turn it up. You want to see him get 2 or 3 sacks against Alabama or LSU or Florida. And then you can say, well, but he doesn't do anything, Maybe I can say, well, you know what? He got those sacks. Maybe he was pumped up. But when you play those teams and you lay down and then you get up for UT San Antonio, because guess what? Everybody that you play in the NFL, they were better than the guys that you played against at UT San Antonio.
Thank you.
I can assure you of that.
So all of his big multi-sack games came against UT San Antonio and Louisiana Monroe, or as they call it down there, Monroe.
We're not taking a shot. Skip, you go ahead and preface it now. We're not taking a shot at these football programs, but they're not Alabama. They're not USC. They're not Michigan or Ohio State.
The problem is the Cleveland Browns don't play Louisiana Monroe. The last time I checked, maybe they should be. Maybe it would help them. Maybe they deserve to play Louisiana Monroe, but they don't. So if he just took it up for those games because he was so physically superior to anybody who was trying to block him,
and he was,
that's a scary thought. We know the measurables are off the chart. It's easy. It's size, speed, strength, explosive athleticism. It's a rare package, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Did he play strong against the run? He did not. Did he play high snaps for them? He only played in all of his 3 years. He never played more than 70% of their defensive snaps, which means he was coming off the field a lot for what? And some of the scouts said, well, last year he did what Clowney did his last year at South Carolina, which is protect himself from injury for the draft. I don't love that. I got to tell you, you were a football player. Football players play football because they can't help themselves from playing football. It's just in your blood. And the concept of, I'm going to protect myself, it just won't go in your brain,
You know
psyche.
But you know what, Skip? I would like to see players be able to come out because clearly Clowney was ready to come out.
Okay,
after
that's
sophomore
fine,
year.
but that's a whole nother issue.
And you know what he's saying? People who was in Clowney's ear, and I can assure you, some of the same people, type people, not the same people, it was in Myles Garrett's ear. If you finish the season healthy, you'll be the #1 overall draft pick. Skip, is hard knowing because guess what? Jadeveon Clowney saw Marcus Latimer basically end his career in Williams-Brice Stadium in Columbia, South Carolina. And he saw that. So he's saying to himself, bruh, I'm not really trying to do anything. Go back and look at my sophomore year when I had nothing to lose. Now that I got something to lose, I'm not about to lose it out here. And so you know what? I might be willing to give him a pass for that, but Skip, but I just still didn't see enough, even in his freshman and sophomore year, that caused me to say, okay, this is the #1 pick. Now, a lot of people said it. When he came out of college, they said in 3 years he would be the #1 pick in the draft because he possessed that kind of ability. But I just don't see it. But you know what, Skip? The Browns, it seems like they say all the right things. They get a coach. Everybody's going to have a voice. But as soon as there's a dissenting voice, it seems that person is locked out. And that's not the way you run a business. And I told you what's going to happen. If you want to improve the Cleveland Browns, you must keep Jimmy Haslam out of the building. Well, it's kind of hard since he plays to keep the lights on and the building open. So this is what you're up against. There's no question in my mind there's a great chance. I think there's a better than 90% chance that probably Hugh Jackson won't be back after the season.
Okay. So if it's true that Sashi Brown, Paul DePodesta run in the draft, they're banking more on measurables than immeasurables. The intangibles are off the chart for Deshaun Watson to me. But if they're projecting that Myles Garrett and Trubisky will in 3 years be dominating players, they're sadly mistaken because, as you know, in the end, it's what's in your heart.
That's what you can't measure.
Gut. You just can't measure it, and I don't see it in either of these. They measure great, both of them, but they don't play great. They don't perform high. They don't transcend even college football because they didn't lead their teams to great success.
Somebody that first pick in the draft is about to get somewhere between $25 and $27 million guaranteed.
And I'm going to remind you to sum this up. I just went back a few years to 2013, and I looked at the top of the 2013 draft. Do you know how many swings and misses there were in this draft? It's just shocking. And trust me, you can take this to the bank tonight. Of the first 15, 20 picks, about half of them you'll long-term consider either busts or big disappointments, right? So just real quick, like I looked at the 2013 draft, the offensive linemen went for Eric Fisher and Luke Jokel. They're just guys. They're okay, but they haven't made a Pro Bowl, either one of them. Then
and Jokel is no longer in Jacksonville either.
That's right. I agree. So Deion Jordan went to your dog. It's just it was a swing and a miss, okay? And then let's go to Barkevius Mingo. He's now on his third team. He's a bust. And Jonathan Cooper was the high pick offensive lineman. Now I'm down to the 7th pick in the draft. He's on his third team. Okay, I'm just to the 7th pick. D. Milliner went to the Jets, Alabama. That's a big swing and miss. Like just can't play. That DJ Hayden went to the Raiders. He's been okay, but then he's gone now from the Raiders because I don't think they were that high on him to start with.
But he ran fast.
He did. And then we get down to E.J. Manuel with the 16th pick. He's even gone from the Bills. And I didn't love E.J. I was on the record. I didn't love him going in, but I don't know if you want to call him a bust, but he wasn't a hit. I'll tell you that.
And go to the 2011 draft, which will go down as the greatest draft in NFL history. If you selected a guy and you didn't swing him, because the quarterbacks that you mentioned, Jake Locker, Blaine Gabbert, Christian Ponder was in that draft. The first pick in the draft was who, Skip? Cam. The second pick in the draft was who, Skip? Von Miller. Marcel Darius was 4. Pat Peterson, A.J. Green, Julio Jones.
Okay.
Those are the first 6 players.
That'll work.
But then all of a sudden you get this, let me move, I need Jake Locker. 8, I need to move up. I need to get Blaine Gabbert. Gone. Oh, Christian Ponder. Robert O'Quinn, Ryan Kerrigan. All those guys were in that draft, Skip. And when you go down, it's almost like 25 of those guys that were selected have been to Pro Bowls. All pro. Von Miller was the Super Bowl MVP. Cam was the league MVP. If you just let the draft come to you, and because you need something, you don't overpay for it. You overvalue it. Because what's worse than anything, Skip, when you overvalue a quarterback, it ruins you for a long period of time.
So last quick point. So we're talking about Myles Garrett going number 1. We both like Reuben Foster, the Alabama linebacker, who's just all over the field.
I love it.
You just turn on your TV and watch, and he's in the middle of every play. Long-term, productive football player. I know he doesn't rush the passer. He plays linebacker. But I'll take him over Myles Garrett just as a productive football player. Trust me, he'll have a better NFL career.
Because he has 2 things that you can't teach. And the great middle linebackers from Ray Lewis to Butkus. You look at the linebackers currently now, Luke Kuechly and Bobby Wagner. They're sudden and they're violent. That's what you want in the defense.
Well, we'll see what Cleveland does. They have 11 picks this year, including 2 first-rounders.
Guaranteed the punter's going first
22
overall.
picks over the next 2 years, and this is the 5th time in franchise history that they've had that, so we'll see.
And not one of them has gone to the Hall of Fame, Skip.
Yeah, 26 quarterbacks in 18 seasons. No mercy. Welcome back. Let's head out to Philadelphia, the site of tonight's NFL draft. Our Joel Klatt is there. Joel will be covering the draft on Facebook, Twitter, and Fox Sports Radio tonight. Hello, Joel. Tell us what you're hearing in Philly.
All right, so there's a lot going on in Philly, as you can imagine. And this is what I love about actually getting to site when it comes to draft week and we get close to the first round, is the real information starts coming to the top. And I'm going to give you 5 names that I'm hearing that are fast risers and everybody is hot on, and then 5 names that are falling pretty precipitously right now and could take a tumble tonight in the first round. The 5 names that are rising fast, and preface this with Myles Garrett is pretty consensus number 1. So if you take him out of the mix, there are 5 guys every single team mentions. And I'm talking about every single team that I've talked to. I've talked to about 15, 16 teams already so far leading up to tonight's first round. Solomon Thomas from Stanford, the defensive lineman. Everybody's in love with him. Jamal Adams, the safety from LSU. Both running backs, Leonard Fournette and Christian McCaffrey. And then the edge rusher from Temple, Hassan Reddick. All of those guys likely to be top 10 picks. I don't see them falling past pick 12. Those are your fast risers. And then the guys that are falling down the draft board, whether it's behavioral red flags and or injury red flags. Jonathan Allen from Alabama, he's got no cartilage in one of his shoulders. He's falling down. He may now get into the early teens. He was thought to be a top 5 pick. He's falling a bit right now. You got Malik Hooker from Ohio State. He had hip surgery. People are very scared that he's not going to be very productive in year 1 as a rookie. Garyon Conley for that off-the-field issue, although that's starting to get cleared up a little bit today with that TMZ video of his encounter with that lady who has alleged a rape against him. And Dalvin Cook, who's had surgeries on his shoulders and has off-the-field issues. Those are your 5 fallers right now, but those 5 guys I mentioned earlier, I'm telling you, all of them likely to get selected in the top 10.
Man, Joel, you are all over this. We're impressed. So let's go back to the top of the draft. If, in fact, the Cleveland Browns come away with the guy at the top that you just talked about and then Mitchell Trubisky, will you consider those 2 great picks? Because I'm not sold on either one.
Well, and I don't think many are sold. You know, there is some factions of NFL circles that are very, I would say, watching curiously about Myles Garrett because he wasn't an every down dominant player, okay? And that's what they wanted to see out of somebody with that size and skill set and athleticism at the college level, and they didn't see that. And then Trubisky, I can tell you about the quarterbacks, guys. Everyone's all over the map about who they like and when they should be selected. I'm not going to be shocked if 5 quarterbacks get selected tonight in the first round. I won't be shocked if 2 quarterbacks get selected in the first round. I won't be shocked if 2 of them go in the top 10. I won't be shocked if none of them go in the top 10. That's the only position that there is literally no consistency among the teams that I've talked to. Now, Cleveland is rumored, and I can confirm that they are interested in Trubisky more than the other quarterbacks. And I also can confirm that they are efforting moving back up into the top 6 to select him because they're fearful that the Jets also value him at number 6, and they need to get into one of those picks, whether it's Jacksonville or Tennessee, in order to select him. So you could see tonight, and I think the draft really gets interesting after pick 3 when Chicago selects, because they're going to have their pick, whether it's Jamal Adams or one of the running backs at number 3, then your draft really starts, because Cleveland's going to be on the phone. I believe they're going to be trying to get to pick 4 or 5 to select Trubisky, to have Garrett and Trubisky both in the top 5.
So you're saying that you mentioned that Leonard Fournette and Christian McCaffrey are fast risers. So are you saying that you believe that both of these guys will be top 10, top 8 picks?
No question about it, Shannon. And I'm more sure of that than anything else right now, other than maybe Myles Garrett at number 1 and Solomon Thomas in the top 3, is the fact that I truly believe that you're not only going to see one of these guys selected, you're going to see both of them selected, likely before the 8th selection. I think the 8th selection is both of these guys' floor when you're talking to the first round. And more power to him, because they've earned it. I think Leonard Fournette is a fabulous player. I personally value McCaffrey a little bit higher. Both of these guys are, as quote-unquote the NFL circles call them, war daddies. When it comes to the production of the running back position, people are in love with both of the players. And this is what's also interesting. All these teams that are wanting to move back, like Jacksonville and Tennessee, those types of teams, if they're stuck and they don't get a trade partner, those are the selections. Leonard Fournette and Christian McCaffrey, they're the safest players. You give young quarterbacks weapons on the offensive side. You can eat up clock with the running game, which is what both of those organizations need. And I won't rule out Chicago selecting one of those running backs. That might be a surprise to many people. It won't be a surprise to me at the 3rd pick.
And what are you hearing, Joel, about how far that Joe Mixon will fall?
Well, that's an interesting case, because everyone certainly sees his talent, right? And they value him in the first round. Now, most teams value him under Fournette and McCaffrey, just on a straight talent evaluation, because of Fournette's sheer physical ability and McCaffrey's ability to be more polished in every area than Mixon as a runner, pass catcher, and receiver out of the backfield. But everyone does talk about the talent that is there. I would still be shocked if we see him drafted before the middle of the 2nd round. There's too many good players. I think that this draft is loaded between pick 10 and 60. And that's where the meat of the draft is. That's why everyone wants to move back, so they can select a corner late in the 1st round, early in the 2nd round. They can get their edge rusher late in the 1st round or early in the 2nd round. And that's going to also push Mixon back. What is going to help Joe Mixon is that some teams are considering Dalvin Cook's red flags even more of a red flag than Joe Mixon, because of what you guys talked about in the last segment. In particular, Shannon Sharpe was talking about. Shannon, you were talking, he made amends, at least to some degree, with the woman involved. Whereas there wasn't always that type of situation with Dalvin Cook and his off-the-field incidents going back to high school, and his shoulder surgeries, which you cannot run away from a physical standpoint. So that is helping Mixon get himself back up the draft board, but I still don't expect him drafted before the middle of the 2nd round.
Joel, I want to talk about 2 players, and I haven't heard a whole lot about, but I think they're 2 of the 5 best players in this draft, and that's O.J. Howard, the tight end from Alabama, and Reuben Foster. Reuben Foster has 2 qualities that you want to see in a middle backer. He's sudden and he's violent. And O.J. Howard is what we call a true tight end. A lot of these guys are what we call F's or H's, which is an F back or the split tight end. What are you hearing about Howard and Foster?
Okay, so quickly on Foster, he did have that diluted sample along with Peppers. People are not concerned about that with Foster, but there is some issues about his quirkiness. They love him on the field. I fully expect him to be a middle of the 1st round selection. Look at Miami, maybe a selection that he doesn't get past Miami in the 1st round. As far as Howard goes, he's another guy I could easily put on that risers board. And Shannon, for all the reasons you talked about, and several GMs have made this point, and you know better than anybody, if you look at some great quarterbacks or the Hall of Fame quarterbacks in the last 30 years, most, if not all of them, had not only a very good tight end, but a great tight end to throw to. And you can just go down the list. Joe Montana had Dwight Clark. You had, and Brent Jones. You had yourself with John Elway. You've obviously had the tight ends with Peyton Manning, Dallas Clark with, Tom Brady, and then Peyton Manning with Dallas Clark. So the tight end positions being highly valued. O.J. Howard will be a top 10 selection. Watch out for the New York Jets with O.J. Howard at the 6th selection.
Great stuff, Joel. Joel on top
Thank
of
you,
it
Joel.
from the NFL draft.
No mercy.
Let's talk about the Cavs. LeBron James led the NBA in minutes per game during the regular season, and then he played nearly 44 minutes per game in the Cavs' sweep of the Pacers. Cleveland won't start their second-round series until next week. Yesterday, Ty Lue said he isn't bothered by the amount of minutes LeBron has played. Let's take a listen.
Teams have suffered because they've listened to what the media saying about guys playing minutes. And, LeBron today just said he feels worse when he doesn't play. Like right now, he says he feels worse. So we just got to gauge it and see how he feels. And, everyone else's minutes was great outside of LeBron's, but he said he feels great. He didn't really have a defensive assignment. He's able to roam off guys during the series. And so, it was good for him. And it's, with him playing the minutes he played throughout the course of the regular season has helped him in the playoffs. Now he's able to play those 42, 43 minutes because he's used to it and his body can take it. So I'm not worried about that and what the outside people are saying. Some teams should play some more guys, more minutes, and it would have been a different series. So whatever.
Skip, what do you make of this?
Joy.
Shannon Sharpe, I am about to give the man that you idolize, that you hero worship, and that man's coach a huge compliment for once.
Yeah.
Because I love the way Ty Lue and LeBron James, his co-coach, co-head coach.
Stop it, Skip.
I love how they approach the playoffs because they just say, heck with minutes, just whatever it takes, just do it.
Right.
And Ty Lue is exactly right. LeBron played high minutes against the Pacers, and it benefited him because now he's playing no minutes because you say he's in Cabo San Lucas.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, him and
Family,
Savannah. Yeah,
they're off the. He went Tony Romo on the Cavaliers, right?
Will you stop mentioning Tony Romo's name and LeBron James's?
So I loved that last line that we heard from Ty Lue. Some teams should have played some guys more minutes, and it would have been a different series. He didn't refer by name to any some guy and some team.
Who was he talking about?
I'm just guessing he's talking about Russell Westbrook and the Oklahoma City Thunder, who just lost to the Houston Rockets in 5 games. And just to reiterate, Oklahoma City with Russell Westbrook on the court was a plus 15 in all 5 games. That's pretty good. That means you could maybe be winning those games, right?
Yeah.
And when he was off the floor, they were on minus 58, which means you lost in 5 games, correct?
Yep.
So when Russell Westbrook took his customary rest that he always takes late third, early fourth quarter in the last 3 losses, what happened, Shannon Sharpe? My research tells me that they got outscored in those 3 rest periods 37-11 and lost big leads and lost flow and lost momentum and effectively blew the series when he was resting. Okay. So I see rest. We always argue about rest. I see all different kinds of rests in the NBA. Let's just be clear about this. There's early season rest where you just say, from October on, nobody on this team, this is what Greg Popovich does, nobody's going to play more than 30 minutes a night. That's long-term, season-long rest, okay? I'm pretty good with that. There's back-to-back rest that LeBron James at age 32. Seems like he's 38, but every once in a while in a back-to-back.
Like 28.
Okay, fine. But maybe in a back-to-back situation in January, you don't play the road back-to-back game. You just take a whole game off. I'm pretty good with that. Then there's end-of-season rest where Greg Popovich just takes his foot completely off the gas and nobody plays for the last 2 weeks, and I despise that kind of rest. And then there's customary rest where you build into each game after game after game. Oh, with 2 minutes left in the third quarter, you're going to come over here and sit with me, and I'm going to keep you over here maybe 3 minutes into the fourth quarter before you go back in. Maybe it works during the year, but it doesn't work in the playoffs. I've been covering the NBA for a long time, back to my days at the LA Times here in Los Angeles. Before Magic was a Los Angeles Laker, I'm covering the Lakers. It was Kareem's Lakers. And nobody in those days, then in the Magic Bird days or the Michael days, nobody ever talked about rest, especially in the playoffs. Was it ever an issue? When are you going to go out and take your customary? No, you just didn't do it. If you had to play 48, you just played 48. If you had to play 2 overtimes, you just played all the way through. Because it's the playoffs, and pretty soon you're going to have a whole off season to go to Cabo and play golf or whatever you want to do.
He won't want to go to Cabo. Well, he got that yacht parked in the south of France.
Whatever. Okay, that's fine. But the point is that they blew this because they had Houston on the ropes game after game after game. It was like clockwork. And you let them off the ropes. And then to your point, Russell would come back in frustrated and angry, having sat too long and lost his flow and even, he kind of cooled off literally and figuratively. And then he just goes complete hero ball crazy, out of control, forcing shots, forcing passes that aren't there, and he comes completely apart as his team came more and more apart, and Houston just took over all 3 of the last 3 losses. And it's over in 5. So can Russ rest now? Yeah, he's got a lot of time to rest. What's he doing resting? And again, I'm saying if he co-signed on the rest, I'll blame him too. But whoever was at fault here, whoever wanted to rest him on schedule each game, made a huge mistake. And Ty Lue, between the lines, is taking a shot, well-deserved shot, at the Thunder for their plan of resting him. And I love how they play LeBron, which is they just play him.
See, Skip, the thing is, and I think this goes back to, in a lot of older players, it doesn't matter the sport, football, basketball, baseball, they look and says, back in my time, we didn't do this, this, this. But the players now have a better understanding of their body. And what they do is that the way they train, the way they eat, the way they take care of themselves, not only are they able to play longer, they're able to play better longer. See, the thing is what LeBron has figured out, he says, would I rather have rest or wins? He values wins more than rest. But here's the thing with rest and playing. Do your play suffer if you play these extended minutes? Russell was gassed playing 38 minutes. Do you actually really believe he could have played 43 and 44 when he's collapsing in the fourth quarter? No, he couldn't, Skip, because he hasn't
How do you know that?
Skip,
But you build it into his head psychologically, you need to rest. And after a while, the mind believes what data you put in it.
How long has he been playing like this? He's been playing his whole career. LeBron has been playing basically max minutes his whole career.
Yep.
So he's used to playing like this. His production, his effectiveness does not fall off when he plays extended minutes. Skip, you saw, even though he took a break a minute and a half into the late in the third, in the first 2 to 3 minutes of the fourth, he still suffered in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
so what makes you...
Your cause and effect doesn't, 2 plus 2 don't equal 4, because you're saying that after he rested, then he got tired. I'm saying
he was tired to begin with.
I don't think so.
Explain his fourth quarter collapse.
I just did to you, and I've been doing it for 2 days. He has to sit and watch his helpless teammates fall apart while he's taking his customary rest that they've already plotted out for 4 or 5 minutes of this stretch. And he sits there and he gets angry at everybody, at himself, at them, at his coach, and he goes out and plays completely out of control. The other day in the third quarter, he scored 20 points. It wasn't energy that was his problem in the fourth quarter. It was too much energy. He was trying too hard in the fourth quarter.
Why? If you can play 48 minutes, so it doesn't matter. I thought you're supposed to play hard all the time.
I know, but he's taking it up a notch.
Okay. Well, keep it up.
Not good.
Well, keep it up.
Okay.
You told me yesterday in the fourth quarter that Russell showed signs of being gassed, of being exhausted. That's what you said. I wrote it down.
No, in the third quarter he did, and then he took his rest. But I'm just saying in Game 5, you just play through.
So let me
I said you needed to play on fumes in the fourth quarter. You might as well just stay out there and suck it up and reach down and just say, well, what if they'd been able to hold on to a 12-point lead and he takes no rest? You don't think you could, if he'd stayed out there, they couldn't hold on to a 12-point lead? I think they could.
So you have to look at it. LeBron James led the NBA in minutes played with 37.8.
Which I think that's lunacy, but that's just me.
He's leading the NBA in playoff minutes played with 43.8, so that's up 6 minutes.
That worked.
But think about this, Skip. Over the last 4 games of the finals last year, he averaged playing 44 minutes. LeBron has been playing max minutes basically his whole career. So he's used to this, Skip. If you're used to doing something, you're more apt to be able to continue to do it. You're asking Russell to go to uncharted territory. You're asking him to go into waters he's never been before.
So you're telling me LeBron James is in better shape than Russell Westbrook? I find that hard to believe. I'm sorry, because Russell has to play. I'm not saying he plays harder.
He does.
Okay, he does. He plays with more energy. He expends more energy than LeBron does.
Yes.
Well, just keep expending. It's Game 5. You got the whole offseason to rest.
But here's the thing. Watch LeBron. If LeBron scores somewhere between 18 and 22 points at the half, come third quarter, he let Kyrie do the heavy lifting, or he'll let Kevin Love do the heavy lifting. Westbrook doesn't have that luxury. He doesn't have a guy that can go get him 50 if he needs. He doesn't have a guy that can go get him 20 and 20 rebounds if he needs. So he has to do that. There's no way Russell Westbrook, with the way he plays, can play the minutes that LeBron played in the finals, in the playoffs. He can't play 43.8 minutes playing like that. There's no way.
Okay, but to your point, maybe if he had to gear down in the fourth quarter just because he's got to take off a few plays, maybe, to your point, he would involve his teammates and have to trust them a little bit more.
I've been saying he should trust him a little more. But since he doesn't trust him, he's exerting so much energy through the first three quarters, he's normally gassed. He has to take that break, Skip. You're asking an awful lot of a guy that's never, you're asking a guy to run a sub 4-minute mile when he's never broken 4:30. That's unheard of. Roger Bannister didn't go from 4:20 to sub 3:59.
I know, but those are bursts. That's a short-term thing. This is a 48-minute basketball game in which if you reach down and say, we have a chance to win this game and take it back to a Game 6 in Oklahoma City and it's going to get interesting, you just suck it up and play.
Skip, so let me ask you a question. You run marathons. You think everybody that goes out to the marathon says, they go out where there's 25,000 or 50,000. They have every idea that they're going to finish this race. But guess what happens, Skip? Sometimes the body says, you know what? I'm not taking another step. So what should they do, Skip? Reach down? If you don't have it, you don't have it, Skip. You train. You work. You know how the body works. Now, there comes a point in time.
You know what? This is interesting. You bring this up, and nobody cares about my marathon career, but I ran, I think, 9 or 10. I think it was 9. And I can tell you for a fact, I never walked one step in any marathon I ever ran. You know why? Because if you walk, you'll keep walking. Once you stop, because it hurts so much to keep running, if you stop, your body will scream to you, God, this is terrible. Now we're feeling okay here. And it's hard to start running again. So when Russ sits over there, he cools off. And he loses his flow of the game. And when he comes back in frustrated and angry, and he can't get his body back into the flow that was in the third quarter when he scored 20 points. You don't need to do it. It's the money is on the table for this. This is the one where you can, trust me, through marathons, if you've trained for it, a lot of those people who think they can finish, they just haven't trained enough for it. But if you've trained, at some point, I don't know, Heartbreak Hill in Boston, your body's going to tell you to stop. And you just shout it down and say, no, I'm sorry, I'm not going to stop. And you'll run through Heartbreak Hill, and all of a sudden you'll say, I got my second wind, whatever you want to say.
Well, I'm not going to sit up and say it. I don't consider myself, I was in peak condition when I played. But there were times that I ran so much that I couldn't take another step. And if you push yourself, you can tell your body when it starts to, but when your body says, I'm not moving, it's not moving. When you start to cramp up and every muscle in your body starts to cramp, you're not going
cramps
anywhere.
Are another thing.
But I'm just saying, Skip, you're asking Russell to do something that he's never done, even though there's a bigger prize at the end of the tunnel. Skip, the physiology of the human body, there's only so much it can take. I don't care who you are.
But to Skip's point about the way that they used to play, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar played 20 seasons, Karl Malone played 19 seasons, Kobe Bryant played 20 seasons. Those are the top 3-minute leaders in NBA history.
Yeah.
Kareem has 6 rings, Kobe has 5. So the theory that, the new science and all of that doesn't necessarily match up with NBA history.
Nobody has played the game with the rage and ferocity of a Russell Westbrook.
But the precedent
Kareem is a big Skip.
That he needs to rest.
Kareem is going to the block. He's going to throw the sky hook, and he's going to go back down the court.
I think younger Kobe played with this kind of rage.
No.
I do.
He had Shaq.
Well, okay. But I told you Russell doesn't have any help. We know that from the start.
So he has.
But listen.
Let me ask you a question, Skip. Let me ask you a question, Skip. Can you build a house faster than 2 people can build a house or 3 people can build a house with the same skill set? No, you can't. Russell doesn't have that. He doesn't have what LeBron have and Kyrie and Kevin Love. He doesn't have what Steph Curry has and Kevin Durant, Draymond, and Klay. So he has to do it all. You think this man can really play 44 minutes with the way he plays?
In Game 5, yes.
Skip, what about game 4?
I think if he hadn't sat in game 5, they would have won the game.
Okay, what if he didn't sit in game 4?
Well, your coach, Ty Lewis, saying he should have played more minutes, and the quote is, it would have been a different series.
LeBron conditions himself to play like this. LeBron can do it, Skip, because
he
he's been doing
conditions
it.
on the court to do it.
And what did he say? He say LeBron really doesn't have a man, so he gets to rest sometimes. See, when you call, that's a strategy that we developed.
Oh,
So,
we developed. I think you
wait.
just made a really good case for Russell for MVP.
No mercy.
Former Michigan linebacker Jabrill Peppers is not in the first round of Peter Schrager's mock draft on FoxSports.com. It was reported earlier this week that Peppers tested for a dilute sample at the NFL Combine last month. Joined by Chris Carter. Welcome, Chris.
Good morning.
Morning.
How high would you take Peppers?
Well, this is the problem. Almost every time you ask me a question, I'll give you another question. And the question is, what position is he going to play? Like, is he going to be a will linebacker? He's not necessarily big enough to play that.
No.
Does have some of the other qualities as far as speed, tackling in the box. But a lot of times when Michigan put him in the box, there wasn't a blocker assigned to him. So he was just in space, roaming. So to me, he's a very good athlete, was a great college player, but he's a guy without a position. Now, is he a box safety? What is a box safety? That's a guy that typically is going to be inside the box. He can guard the tight end somewhat, guard the backs and stuff somewhat, but he doesn't have the size of Cam Chancellor, and he doesn't have the coverage skills. He was in pass coverage last year at Michigan. So for me, Michigan did him a disservice. He was in pass coverage 21 times. Skip, they caught the ball 20 times on him. So every time he was in pass cover, he wasn't aggressive. He played off, played soft. They caught the ball 20. On the 21st time, Shannon, you'll love this, the wide receiver dropped it. So for me, yes, he's a good athlete. He's not great in pass coverage. He's not say a Rondé Barber blitz type of cornerback that you can put in nickel.
Right.
He'd have to guard a receiver. So for me, on the first day, he's a liability in pass coverage. So where do you play him? Long story, I'd probably take him in the second round or in the third round. Now,
You're sounding more like third round, right?
well, the second round, you're talking about the top 70, 68
are.
players in college football. And these players...
With a definite position.
Yes. And when you have a need, we don't have time to develop players. Now, I'm all about the draft. I'm all about player development. But when you're trying to draft a guy in those first 2 rounds, this guy has to be ready to play because regardless of what you say, he's got to make a contribution to your team. So he doesn't have a position. They're practicing less and less in the National Football League. So how do you get the proper training to get him pass coverage ready? And I think that's going to take some time. So if he was to fall to the third round, I wouldn't be surprised. Someone's going to get a good football player, but it also is a project, and you have to realize that from day one.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I never thought he was, as they were raving, he could be a top 5, top 10 pick. And I'm thinking about the safeties that I can remember, say, over the last 10 years. Is he Sean Taylor?
No.
Hell no.
No.
Is he Ed Reed?
No.
Is he Troy Polamalu?
No.
Is he Earl Thomas?
No.
Those are the 4 best safeties of the last 15, 20 years. He's not any of those guys. First of all, he doesn't take the ball away. He doesn't have the range that these guys have. Now, Sean Taylor was 230, 235 pounds, but had the range of a smaller safety. But when he got there, he caused a major damage.
He did?
Ed Reed is the best safety that I've ever seen with my own eyes. Because
That's ball hawk. I mean, it's just...
Yes.
I've never seen anybody that could take the ball away like this kid could.
Yeah.
I've never seen anybody, he could blitz, he could return. So he was the best safety that I ever saw. And when I look at this young man, it's because, and he did, like he said in his tweet, I read his tweet, he did this for his team. But in the process of you doing it for the team, you hurt you because now people are saying, okay, what is he?
He played linebacker.
Right, he played linebacker, and basically he was a rover. He was like a bandit.
Absolutely.
He was a bandit player that played a lot of different positions.
Yep.
But he really was not great at any one position. And so now you're asking us to say, okay, take you in the first round as a project. Now we know this: only projects that get taken in the first round are quarterbacks. You could be a project as a quarterback. We'll take you the first round because hey, we can build you up.
Or if you rush the quarterback, they're more likely those 2 positions.
Yes. So when I look at it, Skip, and then look, the dilute diluted sample that he had.
I like putting a D on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Skip says put a D on it. Skip has an English degree. Don't you
I
have?
do. Yeah.
Skip Bayless said English degree, diluted sample. I think that might be a knock, but I think the biggest knock on him is because what are we playing, Matt? And then how good he's at any of those positions in the NFL. Playing will linebacker in college is one thing. Playing it when them 320 pounders are going to push up on you is something entirely different. Playing safety in college is one thing. Having to guard Rob Gronkowski or Jimmy Graham, that's something entirely different, Skip. So I agree with CC. Mid-second round, top of the third, I'm not disappointed.
You both make scary good points, but I'm gonna hang in with my gut feeling on Jabrill Peppers, and that is he's just a football player that I can't quite explain why, but he has, just by watching him on television, not breaking down coach's tape, he has football charisma to me, where he just keeps getting in the middle of play after play after play, and I'm not sure how he got there, but he got in the middle of that play. Did he dislodge the football? He did not. Did he catch the football? No, he did not, because he had one interception in his career. Was he the driving force of a defense that ranked #1 in the nation until the last week of the year? I'd say he was, because he roved all over the place. He was, again, he called himself a linebacker at 213 pounds, but he just was sort of all over the field. He would blitz. I think he could become a very effective NFL blitzer.
I think that defense also, Skippy, played on. They're going to have a couple of first-rounders. The defensive end, left defensive end is a special player.
I like him
and
a
the
lot.
corner was a special player.
So I'm looking at my guys, the Cowboys at 28. If Taco Charlton is still there at 28, and a lot of these I'm mocking the mock drafts, but a lot of them have Taco Charlton. I'm going to take Taco Charlton because he can rush the passer.
That's what.
Yeah, and against your team, that fateful day, he was in the middle of it.
Yes,
man.
he was.
He was disrupting.
All things being equal, Skip, you always take the pass rusher
You
over
have to.
anybody.
I agree.
He's closer to the quarterback.
But would I be unhappy at 28 if they came away with Peppers? I would not, just because I just have a feeling he's one of those guys. When he was in New Jersey, he won state championships. He's just one of those guys who just sort of makes football plays. And you said it, somebody's going to get a good football player, but it's hard to value him high because you can't measure him. You can't measure him at all.
Right.
And he doesn't have a clear-cut position. He's a safety to me.
And depending on what team he goes to, his special teams talent could be negated. Because you get to the NFL, at Michigan, he returned kicks. When you get to the NFL, and they got 4 or 5 guys, faster, quicker than him, more elusive than him. So if you don't get a special teams player, and he is a project, like how high can you take him? And from day one, he is going to be a liability in pass coverage.
Because that's the thing, though, Skip. If we let's just evaluate him on what he should be able to do, which is cover. He gets an F grade. So, I mean, so you're covering guys in college, and a lot of guys that you're covering in college, guess what, Skip? They're not going to be playing on Sunday.
Their careers are over with.
Those guys that you're going to be, they're the best of the best. You got Gronk, you got Jimmy Graham, you got Delaney Walker. You got guys that can flat out go get it done. So, and he's a smaller guy.
Right.
So all the tight ends are like 6'4", big body guys. So it's not like he's the best athlete.
I got it.
Not only are they just as good, if not better athletes, they're bigger and.
But one thing too is we should stop the notion, and I hate it because college football, we watch these kids play, we build them up, and then when they come into the National Football League, man, we just tear them down from everything, height, weight, everything. Like, this is the way it's going to be. I was first-team All-American. I went in the 4th round, all right? That's the reality, regardless of how good you think you are. Projection into the National Football League don't always matter.
No.
The draft tonight is a lane assignment. It's like the 200 meters. Now, you can win the 200 meters from lane 8.
You can.
But you're better off in lane 4 or 3 or 5. So for me, don't be discouraged, the kids, the fans. Like, it's no knock on him. This is the reality. And there are no perfect players, and there are great players taking 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and had been in the 7th round.
Let's go up to the top of the draft now. You have great insight into your program, The Ohio State University, and you could have three-fourths of your defensive backfield could go in the top, 14 picks or so.
Yes.
So give us your quick capsules on Malik Hooker and Marshawn Lattimore and Garyon Conley, who unfortunately for him faces a rape allegation.
Right. I'll go with Conley first because of the allegation. He's a good kid, well respected in the locker room, but he put himself in the situation. The evidence right now, the NFL determined based on the evidence they had that they should send him home from the draft. And talking to an NFL official, he was at the draft and they sent him home. The people at Ohio State, they support the kid. The kid has great character. They saw no flash in the past of this. They're totally surprised by it. He's a very good player. Good size, good speed, great arm length. Also, a lot like Eli Apple. Now, these guys are coming out of college, but they could have used one more year. Now, this is what Urban has done. He stockpiled so much talent. Now you see why Eli left, because these kids were behind him.
Right.
And we got 3 more DBs that are probably first-round draft picks at Ohio State right now. That's why they left. Hooker and Lattimore, they're freaks. Lattimore was a freak. They put him at safety, but he's a ball player. Reaction time, has had some hamstring issues, but very, very explosive. Hooker is like a small forward or 2 guard in the NBA. Great high school basketball player. Plays the ball in space. Greg Schiano compares him to Ed Reed. Now, there's not a lot of
I got it.
Now, there's not a lot of people that you can put the Ed Reed tag on. And Schiano is not one to give up praise. Now, he's done a great job there at Ohio State, been a great addition to the program. But Lattimore and Hooker, they are freakish athletes. They are going to be great. But if those Buckeyes are on your team as a pro, you have to have patience because they haven't played a lot in college. Just like Eli Apple. You're going to have some bad Sundays, but realize you still have a good player. You have to be patient with them because they haven't played 2 or 3 years because they've stockpiled so much talent.
All the guys at Ohio State, the one thing they can do is they can run and jump.
Yes.
And Vernon Golston, Skip, that joker came out with that size, and he couldn't play cops and robbers.
Could not.
He was terrible. But that's one thing they can do. It started with Joey. You couldn't run like that fast, CC. But Joey Galloway.
But he was much
Ted
better.
Ginn, David Boston. And why you playing around? Ohio State been DBU. Like, we've had more DBs.
LSU. Oh, so you about
LSU and Alabama and Ohio State.
You about to get a call from Pat Peterson. You know Pat Peterson did.
I know, Pat. I'm with you, Pat. But the Buckeyes, we bring it.
Okay, back to Malik. Again, that night against my Oklahoma Sooners, he just took the game over. You want to talk about leaping off the TV screen?
Yes.
But now he has gone through a labrum surgery and a hernia surgery, and he's had some nicks and knacks. Do you trust him going forward to be durable?
This is the thing. You have to trust the overall ability because one day he's going to be healthy. Now, he's going to miss all the OTAs. He's going to miss a lot of training camp.
Yep.
But he is a... Now, if you said Peppers is a football player, this guy right here has the size.
I know, he's got it.
He got some reaction. I saw him in the bowl against Clemson. He got some range. He got range.
One thing you see under Urban Meyer, you always see a stockpile of talent, but what you also see is player development. Like Vernon Golston, Urban Meyer wasn't there.
Yeah. That's true.
Like they develop the players that they do have, but be patient because they haven't played a lot.
Ohio State skill players, the one thing they can do, Skip, is run. All of them, if you play receiver DB for that school, you can run.
Yeah, we play some pretty good football.
Now, Chris wasn't exactly a Blazer, but
No,
Chris is in
no
the
doubt
Hall
about
of
it.
Fame.
No
He's the
doubt.
one guy in the Hall of
They
Fame.
talk about, Sharpe, you can't run that fast. I say, all that 4.3 speed do is get you faster to the safety to get knocked out. See how that 4.6 come in handy.
But you could beat Jason Witten, though.
Oh, absolutely.
Stop. They gave him a contract extension.
Anybody named Jason I cannot run. Witten, Whitlock, Day.
Not Taylor.
Derulo.
Not Taylor.
Not Taylor.
Stop it. Great
Jason
picture.
Bourne.
Great picture yesterday with the
You
bus.
can't outrun Jason
Right?
Bourne.
Very
He's
exciting.
free.
Jason Bourne.
You cannot outrun Jason Bourne.
One of the players to watch tonight will be former Oklahoma running back Joe Mixon. Most mock drafts have Mixon as a second-round pick after he punched a woman back in 2014. We're joined by Rob Parker. Welcome, Rob.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Detroit looking all spiffy. The FS1 play him in clothes. Because, he come out here with a new suit every day.
Very nice, Rob.
Thank you.
Rob, you wrote a column for the Shadow League saying that no team should draft Joe Mixon. Tell us why.
You know what? This is one of those situations where it's a gut feeling. I'm not saying, I'm the first one to say people deserve second chances in life. So I'm not one of those guys.
Okay.
Because people make mistakes and things happen. But this just doesn't feel right to me. And I asked the NFL, what kind of league are you? If we're going to throw everything out and it's just about how well you play on the football field. Let's drop the drug tests. Let's drop the investigations. Let's drop all the other stuff, and we shouldn't worry about it. We should just worry about what can you do for me on Sunday. But that's not the league we have. I look at Ray Rice. Ray Rice, granted, he was at the end of his career and wasn't as productive, so that had something to do with it. But this guy, something.
Yeah.
But we know, Skip, that video was hard to overlook, and it was hard for some GM to go put this guy on the podium and say, here you go. We went out and we're bringing him to town. Okay? Aaron Hernandez, I go to him with just the tragic ending of his life and everything that went on. There's another guy who we should look back and say, should he have ever worn an NFL uniform? Shannon, you know everything was out there. I heard Tony Dungy say when he was with the Colts, do not draft list, the gang stuff, all the other stuff that was there. But you know what? Patriots said, hey, we're getting this guy as a good player in the late round, right? We're going to utilize him and get something out of him. So they went down that road. Then later on, after everything hits the fan, they're like, we got duped. No, you did not get duped. You knew what was going on. And the same thing here. Joe Mixon, when you watch that videotape, I'm sorry. It's the most violent, disturbing thing I've seen. One of that I've ever seen. I can't get past it. And now you're going to tell me he is going to be drafted and celebrated and handed a pile of money, and it's okay. Count me out. If that's the league you're running, count me out. Does that mean he never should have an opportunity to do something or earn a living or have a family or even play football down the road? Maybe, yes.
This is down the road. This is 3 years after the fact, Rob.
No.
How much further down the road did you need him to be?
I need it to be further than this. This just doesn't feel right that he's going to be rewarded on this day where a lot of young kids did everything right, played by the rules, and you say down the road, we saw in the NFL, they suspended Terrell Pryor for tattoos? That happened when he was in college, and now you're telling me that Joe Mixon should get the royal red carpet because he can run the football on Sunday. I'm against it.
That's the NFLPA problem, that they allow the NFL to do this. Here's my thing, Rob. All I want to know is this. Who gets a second chance, and for what offense are there not allowed to be a second chance? So once you can tell me that, I know what I'm up against and I know what I'm playing against. He has the right. His resume, he's applying for a job. The job happens to be a professional football player in the NFL. Now, at the first round of calling the interview process at the combine, they say, no, you're not invited. He says, okay, I'm going to do a second at my own. I'm going to have my pro day. I'm inviting you. Skip, they don't have to come. Rob, they don't have to come. Okay.
But the part that you're leaving out is the whole notion that why is the league saying it's okay and that happened 3 years ago in college, why is he not invited to the combine?
Okay, hold on.
Why?
Let me
There's a reason he wasn't invited.
Let me finish my point. If you're going to say anybody that commits one of these acts can no longer find employment, I'm good with it. If that's going to be the standard that we're going to use moving forward. If you commit this act, you can no longer have gainful employment in your chosen field.
I would love to be in Ray Rice's living room tonight when Joe Mixon gets drafted and he says to himself, and I was in the league and he was in Baltimore, people loved that kid until
Rob, let's be 1,000% real.
That's all I'm saying.
If Ray Rice could still play, he would be in the league. They heard the video. They heard the 911 call of Greg Hardy's girlfriend. They saw the pictures, but Greg Hardy had 16 sacks the year before, and he was first-team All-Pro. He was 26 years of age.
So you're telling me it just matters if you can play, because if Joe Mixon was a scrub on Oklahoma, Skip, he would have not been on that team. It wouldn't have been about 1 year. He would have been off.
Rob, you're not new to this.
No,
you know how it works.
I'm just saying.
So let me get this right. A great engineer can do something at one tech company, be it Apple, Google, or Minds, whatever it is. If you have a trait, you have a talent, and you mess up somewhere, If that company don't want you, don't deny me from going somewhere else. You're trying to deny the man. Skip, he went through the process. The state of Oklahoma said, Joe Mixon, for you being a first-time offender, with you having no prior history, this is what we deem your punishment should be. He did that. The state Oklahoma University said, this is what your punishment should be. He's done that. And plus, he's made peace with the woman. The woman said, I had a great conversation with Joe Mixon. I wish him the best moving forward. Rob, you can't hold. This is the problem. When people go through the process, when they commit acts, and they say this, and we laugh at them,
right,
nobody will give us an opportunity.
Let me speak. I cannot and will not say you're absolutely wrong about this, because you make a lot of strong and extremely valid points. And the last thing either of us are going to do is defend what he did to that woman or condone it in any way, shape, or form, because he made a devastating, disgusting, split-second mistake that's going to haunt him for the rest of his life. And he has been penalized for it, because remember, he's so good he could be a top 5 pick, and now he's going to go, I don't know where, down in the second round. So that's going to cost him a whole lot of money. So I don't think he's going to be actually hero worshipped on the red carpet tonight, because a lot of people are going to see him in a very negative light tonight, and he might be the guy who falls through the whole top of the draft. But here's the point. If you could prove to me that Joe Mixon had a history of domestic violence, I'm out, man. But I don't know that he does have a history. And if you could prove to me that you could predict he will have an ongoing history of domestic violence, I'm so out. I can't, I'm done with it.
Okay.
But I have to face the fact of what happened that night. The facts are that this was his first week on campus as the #1 recruit for the University of Oklahoma out of Oakland, California. So it's Saturday night, and he's out on the strip there where all the college kids are hanging out. There's alcohol involved on both sides, and he's trying to flirt with this girl who rejects his advances. So he follows her into this convenience store where they have little tables, and they continue to go back and forth, and insults ensue, back and forth. And he says he was really insulted by her. She says her friend was really insulted by him. Whatever happened, she stands up and she struck him in the face. And he responded by closing his fist and striking her in the face, and she falls back and hits her face on the table and is going to require some surgery to fix her face. So the point is that the Oklahoma laws have been changed a number of years back, pushed through by a female legislator who wanted equality of the sexes. When you're going to deal with people in public when they can commit felony violence, this should be felony to felony. It's equal, because that was felony assault on her part and on his part. So the DA is faced with, man, I got to charge her with felony assault if I'm going to charge him? Yes, you are. It's the letter of the Oklahoma law. So what does the DA do? What any DA would probably do in the same circumstance. He says, I can't do this. Right. Misdemeanor, misdemeanor. Both of them got misdemeanor charges. Okay, so that means that Joe Mixon only had to do his community service. He did not have to go to jail. He did his community service, and Bob Stoops said, you're out of our program. You can stay in school, but you're out of our program for 1 whole year. And I'm a fan of the school, obviously the football team. I thought he would just transfer to some junior college and continue, because he would be offended that he got dumped out of the program and couldn't do any football-related activity for an entire season. But he stuck it out. He stayed there. He had one incident, good academic standing. Yeah, he did, and he had one incident on a parking ticket, and I don't know what happened, but he had a little fit of anger over that. So I'll give him a downgrade on that one.
Thanks for at least admitting that.
Yeah. Well, I'm not admitting. I mean,
but
record,
putting it out there.
And yet everything else that he's done, he's said and done all the right things. So should he lose, to your point, his entire career for that one flashpoint moment in which, by the letter of the law, she committed a misdemeanor and he followed and responded with another misdemeanor? It's really felony to felony assault. It's not domestic abuse. This is not the definition
because they didn't know each other.
Because they didn't even know each other. So it's not a wife or a girlfriend. This is just an assault on both sides.
Skip, you saw the video.
Yeah.
And you think what Joe Mixon did is the reaction of a level-headed, regular guy.
No, he's an 18-year-old
kid who could strike a woman in that fashion.
I agree.
I'm with GM tonight, could not stand up there and call his
Okay,
name.
so you think
That's-
his career should have been ended in that flashpoint
He
moment?
doesn't have to play football. There's other things that you can do.
See,
in life.
that's
Football,
what it
you
is.
don't have to play football.
There it
He
is,
says,
Rob.
Oh, no, you don't have to
It's
play
the
football.
Well,
money.
it is a privilege to play in the NFL, and I
It is.
appreciate everything that you
Yep.
said, Rob. And I unfortunately have extensive experience
She
in this
does.
department, so I appreciate everything that you said. I do agree with Skip, though. I don't think that this is domestic violence. I think it's assault. I obviously don't stand on, and no one at this table stands for putting your hands on a woman.
Nope.
I
Right.
think that it was in life. There's black and there's white and there's mostly gray, and
Yep.
you have to look at each situation individually. And I think that he has done everything that's been asked of him. He was a 18-year-old kid, and he will probably get a chance to play in the NFL. And I personally am hoping that he takes advantage of it and continues to stay on the straight and narrow.
No mercy.
This is the Skip and Shannon Undisputed podcast, where we're delivering you an unscripted, unfiltered, undisputed version of the biggest topics of the day's show. Make sure you subscribe to the Undisputed podcast on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Like us on Facebook at Undisputed on FS1, follow on Twitter at Undisputed, and catch us at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, 6:30 Pacific, Monday through Friday on FS1. You can find us on channel 219 on DirecTV, 150 on Dish. Thanks for listening, everybody. I'm your host, Joy Taylor. That's it for us today. We're back tomorrow with Chris Carter and Chris Broussard. Enjoy the NFL draft tonight, and we'll talk to you on Friday.
Fox Sports. One of one.